Okay, and we only have to meet for 30 minutes, like someone had mentioned. So do you guys want to go over the reflection guide or the study guide, or do you have any questions? Or
I'd be fine with just going over the study guide, like
okay,
step by step. I'd be fine with doing that.
okay, we'll pull that up.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
Okay, sounds good then. Let me pull that up real quick. Did anybody?
I haven't done much of the study guide, but
Yeah, I did I worked on it for like 2 hours yesterday and I did not finish, but
oh, nice.
it's long.
I know.
So long. All right. Okay, so let's see. The first question is, what's the function of the cerebellum? I put a structure that aids in balance and control of the body movement.
Yeah, balance and fine motor movement. Yeah.
Okay. Fine motor. Okay. Just tell me if I'm going too fast or whatever. When do language skills develop rapidly?
Isn't it between like 1 and 3?
Yeah, I found a chart on page 175.
I'm gonna go grab my book real quick. Be right back.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, same.
And I think that at 12 months it said speed and accuracy of word comprehension increases rapidly.
Okay.
But I think that continues. I'm sure it continues. I just didn't see
Yeah.
exactly where it. I mean, I don't know if you found anything else but
Oh no, 1 to 3 was referring to aggressiveness. So yeah, never mind.
okay. And then let's see. The next one's identify milestones in gross and fine motor development, as well as gender differences. And I also found a chart for this too, because it's kind of too confusing to just list everything. It's quite a long list. So that was table 7.1. I did not write the page, but I can find that. Table 7.1. So I guess from chapter 7 towards the front.
223.
223. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Make a note of that. That table's really good at explaining it, so.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so who wants to do the next one? Since I've just kind of gone over some. How about, Kat, you want to do, know the leading causes and factors and preventions related to childhood injury?
All right.
Or you can talk about just what you can remember, and then we can chime in
I
too.
looked through the study guide, but I hadn't gone through and put down page numbers
okay.
and stuff. But
anybody else want to comment on it, or?
Some things I found were that unintentional injuries are the #1 cause of death in children, along with traffic accidents, suffocation, drowning, and poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we talked about that in chapter 8, right? Where it talked about the car accidents in the
Yeah,
unintended injuries section.
Yeah.
I just switched over from the online book to the the actual textbook just a bit ago. So I'm
Paperback.
getting used to where everything actually is.
Yeah.
I
I
know.
know I always have to
Same.
get the book and the online because I use the online for looking up things quickly, but then I like to have the book in front of me too. So,
If I'm actually
I
going to read,
know. I like the online, but
so it also said that boys are twice as likely to get hurt than girls because they're more like active and like running around.
like adventurous.
Yeah, adventurous. Then also some factors were poverty, single parenthood, and low parental education. Also strongly associated, okay, yeah, those were associated with injury. And then overcrowding in cities and heavy road traffic. I guess it's like, you know, if they're biking or running out in the street.
Yeah.
And then let's see, some prevention factors or prevention things are like, you know, helmets and properly restraining them in the car, and then like safety devices like locks on your cabinets and things like that. I recently had a friend, well, the beginning of last year, one of my good friends, her best friend that they knew before they moved, her little son was like 2 or 3, and he swallowed like, you know, the little screws that go like in the door where the door shuts. I guess one of
Like
those
a door
had come
hinge.
out, yeah, and he put it in his mouth and he choked on it, and
Wow.
he ended up having to be taken off life support. But it's like, wow, just something like
Crazy.
that little, you know, it's crazy.
That's sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's really sad. So let's see. And I guess also like there's lots of laws, prevention laws that help prevent
Mhm.
injuries, like, you know, the seatbelts, and then child restraint caps on like medicine, flame-proof clothing, fencing around backyards and swimming pools. And then playgrounds are supposed to be covered with like protective surfaces and stuff like that. So I don't know how much, that's a lot of detail, but okay, so who wants to chime in the next one? It says, know the ins and outs of infectious diseases.
For
the-
this one, I liked the idea that it kind of correlated with diet. So when you have a disease, it was talking about due to the fact that you're ill, then you're going to lead into malnutrition because it'll reduce your appetite and stuff like that.
Yeah, and cause diarrhea and stuff.
Yeah. And then it was also just talking about how there needs to be an increase in public knowledge about like immunization in kids, because people that are in like poverty and stuff like that don't get those important like shots and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and just drinking like unsafe water and stuff and contaminated foods. Like they can get so sick from that, you know.
Yeah. Where was that in the book? Does anyone remember? Like trying to find it.
Oh, gosh, I should have written all the page numbers. That would have been smart, huh? Let's see.
I remember reading it. I'm just like looking for the pictures that I remember in my mind, but I cannot find it. If not, it's fine.
Let's see. Maybe chapter 8.
It's in, at least talks about a bit about infectious diseases in chapter 7 on page 220.
Okay. Thank you.
I think disease is something they kind of cover in a couple different spots. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
disease and injury, those are like,
Oh, yeah. There we go.
two come-
Awesome. Any more questions or comments about that?
I thought it was interesting how they didn't bring up in the book the whole immunizations cause autism argument. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's not as much of a problem anymore, but I know at least a couple of years ago it was still a really big misconception.
I talked to my husband about. I asked him because he's the type of person's like I feel like he knows everything. So I was like, honey, do you know a lot about immunizations? And he's like, yeah, I know quite a bit about them. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't even know he did. But when we were talking about it, I think that case has been kind of disproved, or not, maybe not disproved, but there's not enough evidence. There's not any evidence actually that it causes autism. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess
I completely agree. It's been like more so like a lot of people, just because there was a correlation between both for some reason, everyone suddenly assumed that it was causation, that if you immunize, then it would cause that. But yeah, it's pretty much just it's not true, even though they seem to be correlated somewhat for some reason.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of easy to understand why they would think that, because I know my daughter's autistic. She's not she's really high functioning, but she it's like you want to answer like why, what's going on, but anyway,
That's hard.
and they don't know a lot about autism. So okay, so understanding of examples of make-believe play, egocentrism, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Animistic thinking, conservation, dual representation. Okay, so anybody want to give about make-believe play? It's kind of obvious, but it's probably the easiest one.
I can do make believe play.
Okay.
A situation that I thought of was like when children pick up like their play phones and they start having a conversation with like mom, or like when they have like those like kitchens and with like the fake plastic food and like drinking from cups and eating and things like that.
Perfect. I remember we used to always play like school. I don't know why. We got out of school and we wanted to play school again, but
Right.
we always wanted to be the teacher. Okay, egocentrism.
I can do that if you want.
Sure.
So egocentrism, it's just like how there's no they can't distinguish like symbolic things from like their own. So it was kind of like based on like Piaget and how he believed that when children like they first mentally like represent the world, they kind of just focus on their just like what they think and like how they see it in their own point of view, and then they just assume that other people think and just feel exactly the same way.
Yeah, probably.
Does
I wonder
this
if
also
go ahead.
does this include when kids like can't decipher between like what's real and what's not, or is that something else?
I think that's something else.
Oh, really? I was
Okay,
wondering
I couldn't remember.
if, like, the tooth fairy, would that be the same thing? Because it's like that's the way they think happens.
That's
the tooth
their
fairy comes
view.
and get their tooth, but is that, I don't know if that's the same thing or not. Maybe not exactly, because it's, I don't know.
Yeah, it might go along with it, but maybe it's not exactly that like definition or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe have a good example for it, or was there one in the book? Egocentrism.
The one in the book talked about the children trying to put the doll behind the mountain, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and like pick like where it was like, and it asked the kid to choose what perspective a doll would see, and then they were choosing their own perspective, what they were seeing on the mountain.
Oh. Is that the one where like she would take like the video where she took like a cup and she filled it up in a tall skinny cup, and then she poured it to like a smaller cup, but it was the same amount of water, and she said, oh, is this more like, is there more water now?
I think
And the kid's like no, there's more now,
else though.
That's the conservation
Oh, okay.
idea.
Oh, they're also similar.
Yeah. So conservation refers to the idea that certain physical characteristics of an object remain the same even when their outward appearance changes. Okay, there you go. Okay, animistic. the belief that inanimate objects have lifelike qualities, such as thoughts, wishes, feelings, and intentions. Okay, so like their
A good
baby
example for
dolls
this one
have.
is like a good example for this is like when kids draw like a face on a sun or make like objects become like people or like
Oh, yeah. All right, so according to Vygotsky, what is the foundation for higher cognitive processes? So he talked about like assisted discovery is peer aided by collaboration as young children, as children of varying abilities work in groups. I don't know. I was kind of confused on this one. Does anybody have any insights?
So like I know
Where
scaffolding, like I even talked about it in my religion class, which is really neat
Hmm.
because my religion teacher, we were talking about just parenting in general. And my religion teacher had, I don't even know what he did, but he did like a master's in like psychology, I don't know, something like that.
Mhm.
And he was talking about how important it is to use scaffolding as a way to induce like the higher cognitive process. So like by being able to teach like a kid something through your actions, then they can watch you. And we were talking about how it's just easier for them to really visualize what they're supposed to be doing. And then in the textbook, it was talking about a study that said parental scaffolding of 2 to 3 year olds while jointly solving a challenging puzzle predicted higher scores at age 4. So like it seems to also just affect the way that they can have higher cognitive processes when they get older as well.
Okay. So doing scaffolding like that is what helps them have the higher cognitive processes. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. So according to the study, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then what differences do we see in attention between preschoolers and school-age children? I think, preschoolers are like, of course, they have shorter attention spans and shorter time doing like certain things, more easily distracted.
Yeah.
And then the older ones, it said they have defined scripts and defined metacognition. Yeah. And then I guess we're supposed to talk about what scripts are.
I can.
Is that what it says? Or
Yeah, it says just
okay, go ahead.
scripts.
Okay.
So the definition I found was general descriptions of what occur and when it occurs in a particular situation. And it's something that like guides a sequence of behaviors. And then with metacognition, it was just awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes.
Oh, okay. I sorry, when I had mentioned that before, I was reading the question, not the, okay, second part of the answer. Okay, sorry, I did my thing a little weird, so. Okay, thanks for that. Let's see. What challenges do autistic children face? Anybody want to comment? Or I can.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I have a friend that's autistic, but I'm kind of curious as what the unique perspective you would have on it as a parent with someone with a child who has.
So my daughter is really high functioning. She's 15 right now, but she really struggles with like social cues and things. Like if you make sarcastic jokes, she's kind of like, huh? She doesn't really get it, or she takes it seriously, And then she's also very, I feel like she never learned that part. Like when they're talking about seeing it from your own point of view, I feel like that's all she can see is like her own point of view. It's hard for her to see like other people's points of view. She's very smart, very, she has like a bazillion hobbies, she can do anything. She taught herself to play the piano, the guitar. I mean, she's very talented, but, so some of those processes, like, she doesn't have like a filter, on things that she says.
Mhm.
So like a lot of people get turned off by her, even though she craves friendship. Like she wants friends, and she has friends too. But not many that have stuck by, for a long time. And, she might insert herself where, it's like, we would know like, okay, you need to just chill, but she would like insert herself, and not really realize that it was a problem. So does that make sense kind of? Or?
Mhm.
Okay. Some of the younger kids and maybe more, she was always verbal, so we didn't have that issue, but I really don't like how they just call it all autism. Like it is a spectrum, but they used to label, like Emma would be labeled as Asperger's, but they took that away. They don't have that, which is so weird, because how are you going to describe, the different levels and the different spectrum? But anyway, this says, first, they have limited ability to engage in social interaction. Evident, a lot of times they don't look you in the eye, or just don't speak. Younger kids, such as eye gaze, let's see, facial expressions, gestures, imitations, give and take away. And is this later stereotype language? Okay. So yeah, their interests are really narrow. Like ever since she was little, every time we went to the library, she would always get books on the human body and like nothing else. She was very interested. She always wanted to be a doctor. She's still like, just that narrow-minded, like, this is what I like. Don't tell me, to like anything else. And I don't know, they can just spend hours doing that same thing. Yeah. So, but at the same time, she wants to be very independent, So she has a lot of regular teenager, attributes and things like that too. So anyway, but for the most part, they just want to be treated like normal. They don't want to be treated like any differently. And especially if you have a peer that's autistic, just ask them like what they like and what they don't like, because some things, like if they don't like, they really don't like them. So anyway, okay, the next one is, what language errors do preschoolers make? I got stumped on this one. I couldn't find it. I think
I found
you may
that
remember.
we're over regularization, which means that they overextend the rule of words, like almost like we each have 2 foot, and adding that S, it's not needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like they use the wrong tense of words.
There she is. That's my daughter. She just got her permit today. I'm freaking out. Oh my gosh. Anyway. Okay.
And then it also talk about how they'll use, how do I explain this though? How they'll take words and kind of combine them to get across the idea, but it's not words that we would normally use for it. Because I couldn't find it again, but I remember we had talked about it at some point.
I don't remember that, but it doesn't mean it's not there.
I track that down.
Okay. Well, if you find that, pop up. What do adults do to provide indirect feedback about grammar? So they like repeat it back correctly, which is recasting. Maybe and just extend the sentence to include more vocabulary. And there was another one called expansions, elaborating on kids' speech increasing in complexity. Oh, that's what I just said. Okay. What's the difference? So recasting, is that just saying it exactly back?
Yeah, I think it's just like saying it back.
Okay.
And
And
then
expansion is adding.
yeah.
Okay. Does anybody know what Erickson's crisis for the preschool years was about?
Yeah, in Erickson's like it talked about in the initiative versus guilt, and in its Erickson's theory, the psychological conflict of early childhood, which is resolved positively through play experiences that foster a healthy sense of initiative and through development of superego, a conscience that is not overly strict and guilt-ridden. And then it also talked about kind of simply in a way that children assert themselves more frequently, and if this tendency, or they do it like through criticism and control, children develop a sense of guilt.
Isn't it amazing how many things kids work out and learn through play? I used to always say, like, that's their job, is to play, you know? Because they're learning so much just by playing. So awesome. How can parents, we're almost done. How can parents better help their children understand emotions?
I think like I just kind of thought of this like in my own point of view. I didn't really look for an answer in the textbook, but I was thinking like to go along with the egocentrism, like explain to them that that's not the only like way that everybody feels. Like in one situation you may feel this way, and explain to them that that can be okay depending on the situation, and then also tell them, well, this person or your friend might feel differently, you know?
Yeah, teach them the ways they haven't even thought of. I think I found in the book, it says gains in representation, language, and self-concept support emotional development in early childhood. So I think that goes right along with that. Maybe also just teaching them to help them better understand emotions, teaching them new words about how they feel. You know, you don't have to just be angry or just be happy. You know, there's other words that can better describe it, and just teaching them that.
I think going along with that, just kind of like emotion regulation, just helping them understand like why they're feeling the way that they're feeling and let it be okay to like have feelings, not just like shut them down. But just kind of like talking through it with them and like giving them words to use or helping them understand like, okay, maybe you're not angry, maybe you're actually like sad about this or hurt or whatever. So
yeah, a lot of times they're hurt and they're not necessarily
they're
angry,
expressing in a different way.
Yeah. One more. What role, oh yeah, this is running out of time. Okay. What role does guilt play in the preschooler's life?
For Erickson's thought of thinking, it says that the negative outcome of early childhood is overly strict superego that causes children to feel too much guilt because they've been threatened, criticized, and punished excessively by adults. When this happens, preschoolers' exuberant play and bold efforts to master new tasks break down.
Awesome. Okay, does anybody have any questions? We're going to end, but just before we leave, is there anything specific?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we will see each other on week 10. Who wants to volunteer to be the lead that week?
I can do it then.
Taylor? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I will get this uploaded and put it on the thing and make a little note about it and put everybody's name on there. So thanks everybody for
Cool.
meeting.
Thanks.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Too.